everyone. My name is Mrs. Kinman, and I'm a third grade teacher at Hebron Elementary School. I hope that you are ready for a fun lesson today because I am teaching one of my very favorite things, and that is reading. So let's get ready to read. All right, so to begin, we're going to kind of get into a learning mindset, and the way I like to do that is by thinking about my learning gems. And GEMS is an acronym. I'm going to think about my learning and think about reading, and I'm going to think about something I'm grateful for, something that I'm excited about, something I'm motivated to do, and a success that I can celebrate. So while you're thinking about your learning gems, I'm going to share with you a couple of my learning gems. I am grateful for technology because technology is what is allowing us to be together and learning through television today. So I'm really grateful for technology. I'm excited about our lesson today because not only do I love reading, but I especially love reading fables. I am motivated to get through all of the materials that I have for you today. And a success that I've had, what's a success that I've had with this? I was able to find a video that I really think you're going to enjoy. So think about your own learning gems, and that helps get you in the mindset of being ready to listen and ready to learn. Now, I know that you're familiar with Listening Larry, I'm sure, from your classroom teacher. So we're just going to think about remembering all of those components of good listening. We want to be sure that we're listening with our eyes. So your eyes are focused on your TV right now, or on your tablet or computer if you're watching online. Your ears are ready to listen. So you're focusing on only listening to me right now, and if there's other noise in your house, maybe you can kind of try to tune that out. You're listening with your mouth, which means that your mouth is quiet when your ears are listening. You keep your hands and your feet quiet, so our bodies are calm. We're taking deep breaths. We are ready to listen. We listen with our body, so your body should be facing the speaker right now. We listen with our brain because we're going to be thinking about reading right now. Not about all those other things going on, but we're going to be thinking about reading right now. And you're listening with your heart. So your heart is open, you are ready to learn, you're excited about what we're going to learn, and I think that you're going to enjoy it. So think about that whole body listening as we get started. So today we're going to be learning about fables. I have some of my favorite fables here. These might be familiar to you. This book of fables by Arnold Lobel might look familiar from your classroom. You can probably think of some fables that you're very familiar with, like Little Red Riding Hood, or like The Tortoise and the Hare. This is a version by Toni Morrison, that's The Tortoise or the Hare. There are lots of different versions of fables, but those just might be some that are familiar to you. So fables are short, fictional stories that are written a long time ago, and they always teach a moral or they teach a lesson. Fables always have one or two or three characters in a story, only a couple. There's not a huge range of characters. It's usually only one or two or three characters in the story. Usually they are animals that act like humans. They have human-like qualities. And many times the characters have opposite traits. So one character will be one way and the other character is completely different. Fables always end with a moral. They teach morals. Usually the morals are stated at the end of the story. Now, sometimes they are explicitly stated, and sometimes they are just said in a way that you know that the author is teaching you that moral or lesson. The moral can be found in the lesson learned by the character, whether the story ends well for them or whether the character suffers a consequence. Either way, we can learn a really good lesson. Some examples of some morals that are in fables. Appearances can be deceiving. Slow and steady wins the race. Honesty is the best policy. Beware of flatterers. A flatterer is someone who just tells you good things, whether they're true or not. Prepare today for the needs of tomorrow, or one good turn deserves another. So those are examples. We call them morals because we think about these being in line with positive character traits. So someone that had good character would have good morals. And so the moral is the lesson about good character trait that we're learning from the fable. So who was Aesop? When you hear of fables, often you will hear of Aesop's fables. Aesop was a storyteller who lived in ancient Greece around 2,500 years ago. He had his favorite stories to tell were fables, and he had over 600 to tell. Can you imagine remembering 600 stories? He told these fables orally, which is by mouth, so this meant he had a lot of stories to remember. It's believed that some 2,000 years later, someone wrote these tales down, all of his stories down, and they've been known as Aesop's fables ever since. Now, these are probably familiar fables. The fox and the crow, the tortoise and the hare, the ant and the grasshopper, the lion and the mouse, and the crow and the pitcher. Those are probably familiar stories to you, or maybe a couple of them are. They've been told for generations over and over again in many different ways, with each one putting their own little spin on it, but the basics of the fable are almost always the same. All right, so we're going to get started for today with our fable. We're going to listen to a story of the tortoise and the hare, and if you are watching, you need to know today's secret word is rabbit, okay? So remember the word rabbit. We're going to get started and watch our story today. And as you're getting ready to listen, I want you to think, what is a fable? We just reviewed what a fable is. Be thinking, what is a fable? What is something you already know about this fable? This is a very commonly told one, so you probably already know a lot of the basics about this fable. So think about what you already know and connect that to what you're going to hear in the story. And what is the moral of the story? See if you can identify what is the lesson that is trying to be taught in this story. All right, let's listen.
In a forest lived a rabbit. Wandering all day long, all he did was jump up and admire himself. He loved talking about how much faster he was than the other animals.
I'm the fastest animal in the forest. Would anyone like to race with me?
He sure did run fast with his very big feet. The other animals hated the way he would show off. In saying that, they never ever won a race.
Yes, I win again. Why? Because I'm fast.
Everywhere he went, he would say, "I'm so fast, no one could ever pass me." His words had begun to disturb all the other animals in the forest.
Okay, he might be the fastest, but the fact that he says and shows off about it's not nice.
Someone should teach him a lesson to smarten up.
All that was said amongst all the animals in the forest managed to go to the turtle. The turtle walked very slow. It would take him a day to reach the distance the rabbit could make in a minute. The turtle wished he would come across the rabbit one of these days. He went to the other animals and told them that he would like to race with the rabbit.
You want to race him?
Not even the fastest animals have won against the rabbit. How can you?
You leave that part up to me.
The turtle went next to the rabbit.
Good day, Mr. Rabbit. I have been searching for you.
Curiously, the rabbit asked,
And why might you be looking for me?
I hear that you are the fastest animal in the forest. Well, actually, that's what you think. But to be sure, I would like to race with you. Let's see who is faster.
As soon as the turtle had finished what he had to say, the rabbit began to laugh so hard that all the other animals in the forest heard him.
You? With me? A race? Are you joking me? It's impossible for you to pass me. By the time you take a step, I would finish the race.
Well, unless we race, we will never know, will we?
Okay, be ready then. Tomorrow morning we race.
As the turtle began walking away, the rabbit continued on laughing. The following morning, the animals arrived at the racecourse. They noticed the turtle waiting at the starting line, all ready to go. Very sure of himself, the turtle was smiling.
Please tell me how you're going to beat the rabbit. If he really is so proud and a big show-off, as you all say he is, then this race isn't going to be hard at all.
Soon after, with his very stuck-up attitude, holding a carrot, the rabbit arrived at the racecourse.
Let's race and finish this. I still haven't had breakfast.
Finishing their last preparations, they arrived at the starting point.
The first one that arrives at the red line at the end of the forest wins.
With the mark of the mole, the race started. Just like an arrow, the rabbit flew by. The turtle, on the other hand, began to walk slowly. Whoa, the rabbit was nowhere to be seen. The animals watching the race thought that the turtle was going to get beaten. After running a while, the rabbit stopped and had a look behind him. There was nothing to be seen.
By the looks of it, the turtle will finish the race tonight. I better sit and finish my carrot.
The rabbit finished eating his carrot, looked up the road, and from afar he saw the turtle coming. With a cheeky grin, he stood up and continued on running. The rabbit had nearly reached the finishing point.
I'm a bit sleepy after breakfast. I might sit under this tree and take a nap.
As confident as he was about winning the race, the rabbit drifted off to sleep. The turtle continued on walking very, very slowly, but with great confidence. At last, he arrived next to the rabbit. He saw that the rabbit was in a deep sleep. Without stopping, he continued on his way. A while later, the rabbit woke up. When he looked and could not see the turtle,
The turtle is nowhere to be seen. Maybe he doesn't want to race anymore. I should finish my race now.
as the rabbit was slowly making his way to the finishing point, what does he see? The turtle had passed him. In fact, he was about to finish the race. Using all the energy he had left over, he tried to pass the turtle. But the turtle had already finished the race. Some of the animals waiting at the finish line were extremely happy. All the animals were throwing the turtle up in the air with great excitement, while the rabbit stood in the corner with great sadness. Turtle, the winner of the race, walked towards the rabbit.
Mr. Rabbit, the important thing is being consistent about everything that you do. To brag with nonsense and love yourself is weakness. I beat you not because I was faster, but I was wiser and did what I did seriously.
You're right. From now on, I will stop bragging about being the fastest amongst everyone.
I should return now. My home is a long journey away.
The turtle smiled and continued on his way. The rabbit learnt a good lesson and noticed his mistake. After that day on, he never ever bragged about himself, nor did he ever race again. The lady ran, but the gingerbread man was so fast that
All right, so hopefully that story was a little bit familiar for you, The Tortoise and the Hare. It's a great story that teaches us a great lesson. All right, so now we're going to read a similar but a slightly different version of the same fable of the tortoise and the hare. So hopefully that you can see this on your screen well enough that you can read along with me. One afternoon, all the animals were gathered under a tree in the woods, listening to Hare brag about how fast he was. "I'm quicker than lightning and can outrun the wind," he boasted. "In fact, I can beat anyone here," Hare continued with confidence. "Who wants to race?" All the other animals looked around at each other, wondering if anyone was daring enough to accept Hare's challenge. A small voice came from the back of the crowd. "I'll race you," said Tortoise. Hare snickered. "You? I will run circles around you. You don't even stand a chance." "Well then," Tortoise replied, "let's race." At the starting line, Squirrel gave the signal, and off went both Tortoise and Hare. In an instant, Hare was down the path and over the hill, while Tortoise poked along at a sluggish pace. Soon Hare was far ahead and found himself growing hot and tired. Thinking about how far behind Tortoise was, Hare thought to himself, "I have plenty of time to take a little nap and still win this race." Meanwhile, Tortoise continued putting one step in front of the other. Slowly but surely, he kept a steady pace on the path as the sun sank in the sky and the shadows of the trees grew longer. After a long while, Hare awoke from his nap. "I wonder where that poky Tortoise is," Hare thought to himself. "I'll bet he's still way behind." As Hare stretched and made his way to the path, he squinted his eyes to see if he could see Tortoise on the path behind him. When he didn't see anything, he peered in the direction of the finish line way up ahead. "Oh no!" exclaimed Hare. "Tortoise is almost to the end." Hare ran as fast as his legs would go, but it was too late. Tortoise crossed the finish line before Hare could catch up. "Hooray for Tortoise!" all the animals cheered. Hare couldn't believe it. Tortoise had won the race. All right, so now, thinking about some of those important elements of a fable. We talked about characters and how there's usually just a very few amount of characters. Let's think about the character traits. Remember that good readers can infer a character's traits by thinking about what a character does, what that character says, or what that character is thinking. So these are some examples of some positive and negative character traits. So let's see what we can think about the characters that are in the fable we listened to and then read, the tortoise and the hare. So let's think how we would best describe the tortoise and the hare. Let's see. I believe that we could think about the hare. Now, the rabbit, did he have positive character traits or negative character traits? I think we would probably associate more negative character traits with hare. We know that he was very proud, right? He was very proud. He might have even been too proud. He was a little bit too proud. We also know that the rabbit was very, he liked to boast and he liked to brag a lot. So he was full of himself. Then that is kind of what too proud can mean too. The evidence from the text that we know is because he did not think that anyone could beat him. I also think that we could think about the rabbit as he was unkind. He was unkind because he told his friends that he didn't think anybody could beat him. That's just not a very nice thing to say, is it? No, we don't really treat our friends like that. How about the tortoise? What is a way that we could describe the tortoise? Well, I think that the tortoise was very wise because although he knew he could not physically outrun the rabbit, he knew that he could use his mind and that he could maybe outwit the rabbit, have a good strategy. Another trait of the tortoise is that he was slow. He was slow. We know that he was slow and that we know that the hare was fast. And those are ways that are important for us to understand the characters and how they approached the story. All right, so now we're going to think about, forget to go back to the arrow here. Okay, the moral of the fable. The moral is the message or the lesson that the story teaches. So ways that we can determine the moral of the story is to think about the characters' motives and their traits and their feelings and how those affect the story. We can think about their response to challenges. That's an important one for this fable. We can think about the characters' actions or choices or what happens as a result of those actions and choices. The character's experience or how what the character went through changed the story, okay? So thinking about the tortoise and the hare, we have to, as a good reader, we have to evaluate the character's choices and then the result of those choices. So let's first think about the tortoise. What did the tortoise want? Well, the tortoise wanted someone to challenge hare. What did tortoise do? Well, he kept a good attitude and he just kept putting one foot in front of the other, right? As the story went along, he just kept going steady. What happened as a result of his actions? Well, as a result of his actions, he made slow but steady progress. He didn't give up even when he knew that hare had started off much faster than he did. Now let's think about what hare wanted. Well, he wanted to prove that he was faster than anyone else. He got tired, though, because he was racing so fast, so he decided just to take a nap and rest. He thought he would still win. He thought he was so far ahead that no one could beat him. So then what happened as a result of those actions? Well, he ended up napping longer than he meant to, and since he was asleep, he didn't notice that the tortoise passed him right on by. By the time he woke up, tortoise was getting ready to cross the finish line. So now that we've analyzed those characters and their actions and how that affected the story, we can start to think about what is the moral of the story. How might have hare's pride and confidence caused an unexpected outcome for him? Well, he thought he was so far ahead he could nap and still win that race. However, when he woke up, he realized he had slept for too long. Tortoise was getting ready to cross the finish line. So what do you think the reader could learn from tortoise when faced with a challenge? We should not think that we can't do things. So we have to keep a positive attitude and just keep moving forward one step at a time. So keeping all of those things that we analyzed about the character in mind, what could we say is the moral of the story? I think we could say that the moral of the story is, it doesn't matter if you're going slowly, you just have to keep going. And when we think back to the beginning of the lesson, when we talked about those examples of different morals of the story, I remember one said it very well. Slow and steady wins the race. Slow and steady wins the race. And when you think about, is that something that someone that has good character would know and good morals would know? Absolutely. And that is what this fable teaches us. We're going to talk about these other questions in just a minute. All right, so now let's check for understanding. The way we're going to do this is I will read you the question and the answer choices, and then you are going to do a finger response. So you're going to be ready with your fist. And after I read the question, if you think that the answer is A, you're going to hold up one finger. If you think the answer is B, you will hold up 2 fingers. And if you think the answer is C, you will hold up 3 fingers. All right? So let's check for our understanding. Number 1, what is a fable? A, true or nonfiction stories. B, short fictional stories written long ago that teach a moral or a lesson. Or C, long works of fiction, such as a novel. Okay, is your fist ready? Let's respond. 1, 2, 3, respond. You should be holding up 2 fingers because the answer choice is B. Fables are short, fictional stories written long ago that teach a moral or a lesson. We've got one more. Number 2, which of these is not an example of a moral of a fable? A, slow and steady wins the race. B, honesty is the best policy. Or C, rabbits run faster than turtles. Get your fist ready. Let's respond. Ready? 1, 2, 3, respond. You should be holding up 3 fingers. The answer is C. That is not an example of a moral of a fable. All right, thanks for working hard today. Remember, your secret word for today is rabbit. If you watch this lesson, be sure to tell your teacher that secret word, rabbit. If you want to take some next steps and do a little bit more learning, here are some things that you could think about. Maybe you could write in your journal about how you might use the lesson that you learned about in this fable the next time that you are faced with a big challenge that takes time. Would you rather be more like the hare or more like the tortoise? Something to think about. Or you could write about a time that you had to work hard and stick with a task to get it done. All right, bravo. Thanks for working hard today. Have a great day.